Okay, but it's 6:30, so let's go ahead and call to order. Additions, removals, or adjustments to the agenda? Are there any?
Should we put on the mileage certification?
We need to approve that.
Yeah,
Um. It can be done as part of the consent agenda, right? Or no?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll add it to the consent agenda. Okay,
Minutes for December 16th.
yes,
You want to pull out?
pull out.
Please. Minor change.
Okay. All right. I think that's it then. Anybody here for the public forum? Cricket. All right, great. So then we're on to regular business. First up would be to appoint B. Lynch to the Waite House Commission. I think she submitted a letter of interest to the select board, and I think the commission has spoken with her or
Yes.
interviewed her.
Yes, last month we, Anne Marie and Kathy and I interviewed her and glowing report for her.
Okay,
Just would be a real positive addition to the commission.
okay, great. Okay, so then we would just need a motion.
I would so move.
second.
Okay, all those in support of appointing B. Lynch to the Waite House Commission? All right, great. That is unanimous. Let me go look at my agenda again. Matter Path Waite House lease discussion. I think the hope was that Misha Goffman from the Path would be able to attend tonight, which he can't. It was short notice. To kind of go over some concerns they have specific to storage at the facility. And I know there are some other ongoing issues, so I did stop by and have a discussion with him. I suggested that I think we need to have a discussion and whether it's with the select board at this point or with the Waite House Commission, but I think we really need to have upfront information from him. Clarifying what it is he's looking for in terms of storage. You know, I said right now we seem to be asking for forgiveness rather than permission, and we need to be frank and honest. So that we know, and I think some small, you know, having gone through I stopped in and spoke with him, we walked through the building together. I hear, it seems like maybe other tenants want a little bit of storage. I think we need to get a handle on, what type of storage they're looking for, you know, like it's one thing to have a little spot in the basement to put your fan when you're not using it. But I think we need to make sure there are parameters in place and for people to understand that might impact their rent.
The leases that's currently written sort of assumed that there would be no
Right.
storage in those basement spaces or
Right.
Sheds.
or the sheds
Right.
or any
Sheds
of
and
those
yards.
spaces. So I think reading that letter, I got the sense that perhaps the lease agreement was not really fully and completely read by
Mhm.
or understood at least by the path. Because
But
speaking
at
of
our last
purposes.
meeting, we reaffirmed the policy of no storage.
All right.
That's the recommendation of the commission, the committee.
Was there action tonight or was it
Um,
reschedule, Misha?
I think we reschedule and we just need to reconfirm. I mean, I don't know if some, you know, everything, it's a slippery slope, right? Like, and I think there's some, like, we don't want the building to look like it did look. And I explained it, you know, I expressed, I know the tenants put a lot of work into cleaning up the building, including Misha. But it's part of the reason that there was so much stuff on the property is because of the organizations have been renting space and just kind of storing stuff on the property without ramifications. So some of that cleanup did involve what the path had left behind to a certain extent. And I think the hope is to keep it from going backwards. Now, I've also been informed that Stewart MRV is also storing stuff on the property as well. And my concern there is that I don't know where they got permission from to do it, but it wasn't from the town.
They're not a tenant.
They're not a tenant,
Yeah.
and they did not ask anyone, they didn't ask the commission, right? And they didn't ask anyone working with the town if they could put stuff there.
I don't think it was just the path as a board member of the Friends of the Mad River. I think we had put a bunch of junk related to stream stabilization and
Mhm.
whatnot in the various buildings before too. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's just making clear what the parameters are. I personally, if there is some room for storage that serves, a community purpose, I'd be open to it, as long as there was
Needs to
parameters
be-
and
I
understanding.
think there needs to be like a clear physical delineation of boundaries. I mean, when you're
Yeah.
renting somewhere,
Mhm.
and you're granted storage space in the basement.
Mhm. Yeah,
You are granted a specific amount of
Yep.
space that usually is something that you have like a lock on. I'm not saying that we need
Right.
like all of that, but
but
I
you
think
get like a
being very
6x8
clear.
stall and.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we're not responsible for damages. And it's one thing like with the tools that they have there to have a need, it's like working storage space, but if it's just storage space, I need somewhere to park something for the next 6 months.
There's storage units for rent.
Yeah.
in Town. And we need access to some of those buildings to do the
Mhm.
work that we wanna do to those buildings.
Yeah,
Talking with Anne Marie just prior to the meeting. The only tenant that has signed their lease is the Historical Society.
mhm,
So I'm thinking that probably one of us will have to sit down individually with each tenant, review the lease and get it signed. That's what I think it's coming down to.
The planning district is aware and has not talked about the rent increase. It's all fine, so I can make sure that the planning district and the Friends sign it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
There's a doggy addendum for planning district. Well, Gus in there.
And what does what?
Um,
Dog
Josh's
addendum.
Oh,
Josh
doggy
brings his
addendum.
dog.
okay, doggy,
An addendum for the doggy.
okay.
So it
I
sounds
thought
like we
you were
need
like a
to,
doggy or the dendron, okay, yeah, real doggy.
Well, that's what I refer to it.
Yeah.
So because we thought Gus would be okay, because he's been there for some time.
He doesn't roam.
He doesn't cause problems.
so it sounds like we need to revisit storage at some point from a sort of policy
Right,
perspective on our end, but that as things currently stand with the current leases, there is not supposed to be any storage in those spaces, and that we need to follow back up
yeah,
with Misha when he's not otherwise.
yeah. So, yeah, next, if we meet on the 13th, that might, I think, be a possibility. All right, so we good with that? Do we want to just hop and go to the covered bridge? Because we have
Yeah.
Miles, if we have any questions for him, and he's got to go in a little over 10 minutes.
That would be helpful.
Oh. And he did send an email with a pretty good overview
Oh, we did?
update, just to me and Fred, just a few
Okay.
minutes ago.
No, thank you. for telling me.
Thanks for being here, Miles.
Thank you, yeah.
Sure. So just to give a quick update, we finished the structural work today. We found a couple extra rafters were rotten, so we replaced those. We also found a couple more roofing pans were dented, so we are going to replace those. And tomorrow we'll be installing the gable sheathing, the painted gable sheathing, and the bolster beam that's going under the bridge. That's part of the smaller contract. And that should be all the work that we need to do that necessitates us closing the bridge. The roofing, to be able to put the roofing, strip the rest of the roofing that needs to come off and replace it, we're just going to need to wait for a break in the weather. And as soon as we get that, we'll be there. But I just can't get up on the roof right now. But we'll be able to do that. I think what we're going to do is leave the tower staging that we have that's over the sidewalk that people are walking through right now, if that's all right. And we'll be able to work without closing the road when we put the roofing, do the rest of the roofing work.
That will make people happy. So we still do have a couple more days of closure.
Should be just tomorrow.
Okay, and I've been telling my kids, one thing I realized, if they go to the Mad River Valley TV webcam, they can see whether or not the bridge is closed, because you put that webcam's aimed right at the bridge, and if your car's, your truck's parked up in there, it's closed.
Yeah.
So, did anyone
think
have anything
that's-
else?
No, I haven't heard
Uh,
anything else from the insurance from Passive. They said that if they might need more detailed cost breakdown, and they'd get back to me. They said they'd get back to me a week ago, and they never did, so I will follow up. I didn't bother them over the holidays,
Yeah.
but I will follow up just to make sure we're good with them. They said they would let me know if we're not.
Okay,
My only other follow-up question was, I think, Miles, when we initially spoke to you, there was discussion of some sort of preventative, sort of pre-bridge measure that was still in keeping with the historic sort of standards, but that would maybe protect the structure before, but I didn't know if there was any additional information. There's been a lot of input from various parties as to creative workarounds. I'd be curious to hear if you have any insight on what we should look into.
Sure. So through my position on the Vermont Covered Bridge Society, I've been working with some folks there and talking to VTrans and just trying to make sure that there are no liability issues around that, because we have some folks at VTrans have told us that they believe that there is a liability issue for towns to put up a headache bar like that. As ridiculous as it might be, you know, the truck goes another 50 feet, it actually hits the bridge. But I want to make sure that before I, you know, come forth to the town with a proposal, that I'm not giving you something that doesn't work. So I'm still working on that. I want to make sure I have a solid answer about that.
yeah, and there are other ideas out there, and I know we brought up the idea of discussing an ordinance. And I think that would probably be discussed at a future time.
Mm.
When we kind of triage some of the other things we're working on right now, as far as budget.
And I've been researching some sort of type of electric eye. That the beam gets broken.
Right, sort of at a certain height,
Yeah.
it would sort of flash a
Yeah.
sign or something like that.
And that looks like it can happen.
Okay,
The one thing I would say about that, and I mean, it might be worth doing just because it's probably not all that expensive, but there is a great YouTube channel about, it's called the Low Bridge or something. And it's they have something like this, a lot of flashing lights,
Mhm.
and large signage, and it's just videos of trucks running them into
Right,
a bridge over and over.
it's inevitable, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen, I think, it's, it's not a question of if, it's
It's
a question of
when.
It's
when,
when.
and how
Absolutely.
bad.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I don't think this last guy was going slow enough to stop if there was a warning.
No,
right, that's the
absolutely.
other thing, yeah, and did he even stop at the stop sign?
No.
I mean, to get that much speed to
Right.
hit that hard.
Going uphill,
within that,
yeah, no.
yeah,
It's 40 feet,
Okay.
I measured it. It's 40 feet from the stop sign to the bridge.
yeah,
And there's no way that he gained enough momentum from a dead stop. There in 40 feet, to hit that bridge and take out a 10x10.
yeah,
No way.
pretty impressive. So. Okay, do we have anything else on the covered bridge, or?
Can I just say one thing?
Sure,
Our daughter, who does the walking and now takes the bus, goes past it all the time. Brian, she was very impressed with your post to Front Porch Forum, and she was very happy that you did it. She just said, compliment Brian, because thank goodness somebody said, everybody be quiet, we know what we're doing.
Calm down.
right,
Yeah, everybody calm down.
Keep progress.
Take responsibility for yourself.
Thanks, Alice.
Follow
That
rules.
wasn't.
Yeah.
an article.
And
Yeah.
she never comments on anything town, but this is
That's
the first
funny.
time she did.
The gold star, Brian.
All right, okay, well, great, thank you, thanks for logging on, Miles.
And thanks for all your
On
work.
the work
Yes.
Yeah.
thank
and the
you.
update. All right, so one more day of pain.
Stay warm.
Yeah,
No kidding.
chilly up there. Okay, FEMA update?
Not a whole lot there either. We have had some meetings with the various representatives. I think we're on our third, what do they call them?
PDMGs.
PDMGs.
Of course.
They have a lot of acronyms.
I couldn't
Yes,
tell you what
this
that
is
stands
better
for to
I
save
don't
my
remember.
life, but,
We have kept the issue of whether there's some reimbursement for the Meadow Road Bridge because of the pounding it took when it was serving as a detour. We had an inspection on Thursday.
Mhm.
3 folks from FEMA came up. There's 2 different pools of money, one a mitigation fund and one damage
Mhm.
repair. The mitigation person was there and I don't know I'm gonna explore whether that's a possibility for funding.
Mhm.
FEMA seems to think that it's not an unreasonable request, whether it's eligible or not, they haven't determined yet. The
Mhm.
folks from the state were more wary that it wasn't really gonna be deemed flood-related damage.
Right,
But they're reviewing the accident reports, we're making the case that the deterioration from 2 years ago to the
right,
month after the flood was flood-related.
right, and I think the larger issue is that it's clearly an important travel path. And the link, depending on what gets closed due to damage. It might be the only way north or the only way south for a lot of people.
Michelle, the regional
Mhm.
district person, that's on her mind and on
Yeah.
V-Trans's mind.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
where are we on our 60-day timer for the
Um,
MSI?
just before Christmas, when you and JB and I kind of panicked over the form that said everything was due today,
Yeah,
and we've submitted some stuff, that was soon after, that was around the 60 days, so somewhere in time in February. So we can
Okay.
check in.
Mhm.
I haven't responded to Nicole
okay.
about the meeting next
'Cause
Thursday.
I've honestly, I've not been paying very much attention to the FEMA stuff at this stage. So,
I-
Right, yeah,
That's
busy
fine.
with other things, yeah, they're, for those that aren't on the email, there's supposed to be a meeting on Thursday. But it's
It was just-
Carter's funeral and Biden had kind of called for a day of quiet like,
Yes.
how did he refer to it? Quiet reflection, so the meeting was
Federal
canceled,
holiday.
yeah, of sorts. So,
Brian, I
Well, the-
talked, Keith,
Oh, go ahead, Alice.
yeah,
ahead.
he and I talked about it. And we thought that what you should really lean on is the fact that this bridge has become a critical route in Waitsfield. And that it's very important that emergency vehicles can get over it. That it's just, that's the way it's developed and, bridge has a problem and it has to be closed. You've got a bigger problem on how any emergency vehicle can get to North Road. This section of North Road.
Absolutely. I do gotta say, I know I told Fred this maybe the rest of the bridge inspection meeting was originally scheduled for December 26th.
Right.
And we got a call from FEMA at just before 11 o'clock Christmas night
PM, yeah.
to cancel the meeting,
Oh
to
my
ask if we
God.
really wanted to do it. And the guy just keeps apologizing to my wife because apparently she grilled him pretty heavily.
For a late
Like,
night.
what the hell are you calling it Christmas night?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
True,
Not too suspicious.
So anyhow, that's the
Right.
update.
all right. Okay, then, there's nothing else, we can go on to the budget. Ryan, I don't know if you want to present. what you
Yeah,
have,
so
but
I
don't-
sent around a spreadsheet. For most, just basically town operations, town office, select board, election, listers, planning and zoning. It's a first draft. It doesn't include any of the salary line items, which are another discussion that I also sent around some information on. But this was just based on sitting down with Jennifer, talking to JB. I haven't talked to the listers yet, so there's some question marks there.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of just a couple of things to think about. But if you want to go just section by section, elections and town meeting, no big change this year. This current fiscal year is a heavy election year. Next year won't be. So that's able to see a little bit of savings there. Under legal and auditing, I need to confirm the audit figures from Steve. They're looking into that just to make sure I have the right contract numbers. We're on a 3-year contract with Sullivan and Powers. Legal, fingers crossed that
Oh,
it won't
yeah.
go up.
Yeah,
It was a pretty busy year and Steve was supposed to send me the, he did send me that. I do have. So as of, budget report he gave me on just after the first of the year, we're a little over $9,000 in legal expenses this year.
mhm.
So.
Which actually isn't bad.
57%.
That,
It's not bad
that's
at all
not,
compared.
I was expecting worse.
Yeah.
based on-
Yes,
So I left that level funded. Then down under town office operations, not a whole lot of change, just mainly some tweaking. I need to confirm our insurance premiums. That's passive weight house. I'm not quite sure how many different, I haven't had a chance to go through that yet, but we'll do it this week. Everything else is just small adjustments. And minor increases.
What falls under special services?
Yeah, that wasn't clear to me. But I'm almost positive, and I will confirm this, that we created that a few years ago. We had an engineer who was not on retainer, but just available, and we used the firm for things like when we did Floodwoods Road. We did that internally. The road crew did the work, but the engineer went out and
Yeah.
worked with them on what the plans
that,
were.
yeah, that was Tyler, right?
Tyler,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and that company also did like a broad plan for road work
Yeah,
and project
paving.
plan, yeah, planning, paving.
we didn't use any of that in the last year, so that's
Right.
zeroed out.
But we're at the point where we might want to update it. I don't know if it would be in special services, because that's in this one, because I would think it would be under road department. But I could be.
Yeah, I don't know why we put it under this, but I think mainly because it was, if we had needed engineering services for other things too, we might as well
Okay.
just keep it under the administration
Yeah.
line item.
Yeah,
Do you think we need to, we can revisit it?
I don't think we need to put it up. I mean, we might
Yeah.
want them to update that paving plan, but I imagine that if it's an update rather than a completely new plan.
Yep.
It shouldn't be that expensive, right?
Mhm. So, that's almost level funded.
Mhm.
Clerk and treasurer, haven't talked about the salaries, but the big
Mhm.
change there is whether we want to keep the administrative assistant
Right.
position on the books.
Right,
Given where we are as a town administrator, I'm
Right.
inclined not to,
yeah,
or at least phase it in later in the year, so it's not for a full year position.
Yeah, it would help. See, I haven't had a chance to look at this to just understand the full context of the budget once it's all together, like, are we gonna be, up 10%? Relative to last year, then
Yeah.
I would definitely say
Yeah.
take it out.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
we're like level with last year, then
Leave
I
it
think
in.
differently.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to being there. We still have a couple of line items, the special appropriations. I haven't put that together
Yeah.
yet, gathering that. The cemetery commission wants to come in and talk about their budget and a
Mhm.
town contribution on an ongoing basis. I think road and fire department weren't that big of a hit. They were both
I think
increases.
fire department was a significant increase, but on a $2.5 million budget.
Oh, so I was thinking it was a significant percentage increase for the department, but
Yes.
their budget overall is not that huge.
Right,
Yeah, they had some capital requests that we need to figure out, do we?
right, we might,
do
we might
fund
want,
those
And the
out of
road
reserve,
road crew has some
appropriation,
capital.
or defer them, delay them?
And the road crew has
For
some
the-
capital.
I think I think the road, if the road crew has projects that they're now, or items that they're now buying that have been planned.
Yes.
Yeah.
The plan has been to take them out of the capital reserves. I
Right.
think we should. I think the question is, like, for the fire department, because I think I shared, that Jared Young, right, is the new fire chief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So he's been in contact with me and they're looking at, speccing out that new tanker that they would like to get, or that they're slated next to get. And I said, well, like, now it's like at $750,000, and that's not what we had planned for originally. So I think we were upping our contribution to the fire department reserves a little bit, and we would probably likely have enough money to get that truck or pay for that truck when it comes, but it's not gonna leave a whole lot after the fact.
Yeah.
So we might,
Right,
if we have room, whether it's probably not gonna be a ton, but $5,000 or $10,000. Type thing.
yeah, I was thinking of the additional request for the crew cab
Mhm.
thing that,
Mhm.
we would have to either fund that out of appropriations or dramatically increase our reserves to cover the pump truck for the following year,
Right,
and that could be a challenge, just rolling all that together with the regular
yeah.
rest of the budget.
I think we also have to acknowledge the fact, we have a lot of money in that undesignated reserve, right? And so that's probably money that we could designate towards something at some point in the future if we need to.
And the road, the road reserves are covering most of the capital expenses. The one thing is to move up the pickup truck,
Right,
if that's an option.
Move up timeline wise?
Yeah,
or-
it was, I think it was in 2027 in the capital budget.
Mhm.
And if possible, Josh asked if we could move it up, especially if we finally bring on a fourth road crew member.
right,
Mhm. I did, minutes before getting in the car to come down here, sent a draft.
Yeah,
uh,
the CIP.
Capital budget.
Yeah, I see
SIP
it.
SIP plan
okay.
around.
Do you want to continue, Brian? And then we'll go to the SIP.
Yeah, so that's the big question there, and we can answer that when we kind of see where we are in the budget.
Mhm.
Select board, I should have highlighted, I did, the only change there, I put in the high end of the range for a town administrator.
Mhm.
I don't know that much about the website, we haven't spent that much on it, so I'm not sure.
Does that
Where we are with that.
include like domain registration and all of that?
Yeah, I haven't
Okay.
figured that out.
Yeah,
Part of it is the maintenance that EcoPixel does.
Mhm.
The other change is, it does show an increase in select board stipends, which Christine and I briefly talked about. Just being aware that I did very little research, and it was last increased in, from 1996 to 1997.
Mhm.
And I will say that, our this is on par with our neighboring towns, Basin and Moortown do $1,000 per select board member. Moortown does 15. A lot of towns do, like Lincoln does 3,000 for the chair, 2,000 for other members. Starksboro does 1,000 plus an hourly meeting reimbursement. So
Wow.
I'm just aware that there is a lot of out-of-pocket cost
Yeah.
associated with driving around and using personal equipment and stuff. And I thought that we shouldn't be selling ourselves cheap compared to our neighboring towns.
No.
Somebody will mention it. Leading.
Sure.
Right.
No increase since 1997.
I know, well, it's
It's a
one thing
good
I looked
response.
into, cause like our school board gets like $750 was the stipend for school board members, and there's some school boards where they get like $5,000 each.
Yeah.
Which is still, the amount of time you spend in a meeting it's nothing, but at least it's like. You can do something with it, they can say, it's a little bit more reasonable.
When I moderated the school
Oh,
board
yeah,
meeting,
$100.
I got $100, but they sent me 4 or 5 forms to fill out. so
Yeah,
I
and
just
you're like-
decided to forget it.
I remember that. That you were like, forget about it.
I have more time now.
And I know, so I did hear Carol, our recording secretary, is raising her rate to match that in other towns, but she didn't seem to think it would impact. I think generally that's a line item that we come in under anyway, so
Yeah,
I think we're
She does
fine
a
to
really
leave
good
it.
job.
she does,
Yes.
yeah, she does such a good job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um. Okay, so planning and zoning, I haven't talked to the chair, I did talk to, JB. And this has a mistake. I thought I changed this, that special planning project should have a but no, I included it, never mind. The $5,000 for special planning project is the match for the Irisville planning
Mhm.
grant. I didn't make, and I bumped up equipment a little bit because JB, we really don't have a plan for computer replacement in the town office. It's just kind of when things start going south, we
Yeah.
get a new one, and his seems to be going south.
I think
That
they're
is-
all old.
Yeah, so that's counts for that increase.
So that should have 5,000 in special planning projects, or no, that was there from last year for the match?
Yes, it should have 5,000.
Okay,
I thought I did that. Maybe I did it after I sent
I don't
this out.
see it in the proposed, at least
No, it's
our
not.
copy.
It's not, no, it needs to
Okay.
be in there. Haven't talked to the listers. I'm
Mhm.
not expecting a whole lot of changes there. I just kind of increased assessor services without having checked yet. We'll confirm that. I do know that either last year we either budgeted for a color printer for the listers or talked about it. I don't know if they've got it, but I'll talk to Mary Jane. just to see
Yeah,
if there's
I
anything else.
know,
It's a separate color printer than the one that we replaced.
downstairs.
One to be
Yeah.
up here, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're moving towards that townwide reassessment, and I think that would come out of, there's reserve funds that we've been contributing to, and that's where that would come from.
Yeah, I think the estimate about 110,000, we have about 110 in the reserve, but
Mhm.
I don't think we'll find anybody to do it for several years. Just what I'm hearing, towns are
Yeah.
Yeah.
backed up for years.
Mhm.
Delinquent tax collector, Jen thought that 10,000, like in past years, is more
Mhm.
reasonable. It's just the fees and penalties haven't been above that, so she said
Mhm.
that was probably good. It's offset by a reduction in revenue for the same amount, so it's a break even, but
Mhm.
it's always good to have a little reduction somewhere in expenditures. And then that's the Conservation Commission is their request for
Yeah.
level funding.
An increase in revenue, you mean? Right, you said reduction in revenue.
No, it'll be a reduction in revenue too,
If the,
because this collector fees are paid for by delinquent taxes. So if we have less. lower
but
delinquent
wouldn't it
taxes-
all come into the taxes and then come out? Because if it's a reduction in revenue and an increase in expenses, it's hitting us.
No, it's a reducing expenses and revenue. We're going from 15 to 10,
But I'm just talking about collector fees in general.
yes,
Like we actually collect it and then we pay it out to the tax collector.
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
coming out of that revenue, but
yes.
we only pay it if we see it. Okay, and then, so I keep going. So the conservation special projects, I still have concerns, I guess, about this concept of using the invasive species reserve is like a pass-through for the work that they're doing. Because that's not really my understanding of how reserve funds are supposed to be used. No, I mean, I think they've been using it for their
For the
for the
rating.
grant
Yeah.
staff. But it's also like they're spending it down on an annual basis. And if there's money that they want to be spending on an annual basis, reserve funds are more about long-term saving and
Yeah,
longer term projects than what I want to do from year to year. And if they want to be doing different things from year to year and need more money to do that, this is that line where it should come out of.
so is this in addition to reserve request?
Yes,
Mhm.
So there's conservation special projects, but then there's also is this knotweed specific
There's the
or invasive
invasive
species, sorry?
Yeah,
and also the restroom recreation and conservation.
Yeah, that was 30 grand, I think it was
20.
20, well, in total, 20 and 10, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Right.
20 and 10,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. But are they spending both of those down on the annual?
They're not spending, they're spending the
Just,
invasives down.
yeah, the invasives. And for some reason they think it's 75-25
I
split.
don't know where that.
I don't know where that came from either.
Between emerald ash borer and
Mhm.
knotweed. I think
So you're
we're gonna be
just-
caught short with
put
emerald
it-
ash borers someday.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
You're saying just put a higher amount in the.
Yeah,
budget
and then tell
rather
them they
than
don't have
having
access to the
kind
reserve.
of
I mean, it's one thing
big
to,
reserve.
if they're using the reserves to cover their grant money and then paying the reserve back. I don't know why they couldn't use this line item to do it anyway.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, if they're gonna be doing it on a regular basis, because beauty of reserve obviously isn't. Carries forward,
Yeah, that's,
but if
not-
they're not carrying anything forward. it's not a
Right.
Reserve.
yeah, it's not really a reserve fund. And I don't think that was our intent in making the reserve fund either.
And we have too many reserve funds.
Already.
Yes,
Although I don't think we should get rid of that one because of the emerald ash borer.
right.
Mm.
Well, I think
Mhm.
what
Good point.
what I didn't understand about the reserve funds, like, we need all those, like, designated reserves, but every time you have a reserve fund, it has its own bank account.
Mhm.
So you have to do the accounting for each of those reserve funds, whereas we could say, we have one reserve fund and our intent is that X goes, this much is for we can do internal record keeping rather than having a specific bank account,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Mhm.
We also have a street tree reserve fund, which
Yeah,
we could push off the ash borer to that. Oh, that's really intended for replacement trees.
Replacement,
Mm.
well, but that's
which we'll need to do.
Yeah.
really, but I think that's what the ash borer
I
money
think
was
we're gonna have a lot of
for.
removal.
Hmm?
I think we're gonna have a lot of removal,
Mhm.
Yeah, but you
but you could cover.
can't
both at
replace
the
a
same-
tree till you take the other one out.
It's true.
So I guess, we wanna, maybe we wait and see what things look like.
Yeah.
To see if we wanna increase that. But I think that's something we should think about. All right, and then, Josh also sent out the capital improvement that he updated.
Yeah, so, correct, this is kind of a continuation, Annie had been running it with a kind of a 5-year window, so 25 to 29, up to 26 to 30. But carried a lot of the same principle, a lot of the same numbers and kind of principle.
Yeah,
for-
can I ask just about, like, so I'm looking at, line 4, transfers to reserve.
There's 2 tabs here, the,
Oh, and the 26 to 30 CIP detail.
Yeah.
Line 4, did you mean to have that amount going across the same? Cause this year it's 205 and next year it would be 200. So was that supposed to stay the same year to year?
honestly, I think last year with Annie, I spent a bunch of time looking at this. How much do we need in these accounts to kind of cover the need?
So we were
The-
thinking, so that was intentional.
That was
to put it
intentional,
less-
that-
Okay,
And 205, there's some weird numbers in here, there's
Yeah.
random $81,000 and $710.
yeah, like that's the fire department reserves have numbers like that.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify. I
Is that
wasn't sure if
because
it
of
was
the
a
60-40 split?
I'm guessing it has something to do with that, but even when you do the 60-40, it still comes out to a
Oh.
funky number.
Yeah, I think it was also just probably increasing by a percentage type thing.
Yeah, so, so far, I've tried to have like add in new stuff like the gravel reserve. That was approved last year. I haven't really had a chance to, look at the reserve balances over time and say, are we adequately reserving? You know, to cover our future needs. I think in some cases, particularly the fire department, we're likely under-reserved. Otherwise, I think we're okay. And that higher price for the humper truck may be kind of confirmation that, yeah, those numbers are kind of stale and need to update and relook at reserve. You know, how much we're contributing to reserves to cover
Right,
those future
yeah, I
purchases.
think the one part of the equation is making sure that we have the right numbers change, you know, like we're adjusting for inflation and
Yeah.
increases. And I think we actually have been increasing the amount we've been putting towards the reserves for especially for the fire department for the past few years, because it was kind of like woefully underfunded for many, many years.
Mhm.
So we're still kind of playing catch up.
Yeah, yeah, so right now, I think this has us, yeah, rough draft, but it has us increasing the amount into the reserves in 2026 versus last year by $85,000, it looks like.
Where are you?
I'm like down at the bottom on that same tab, the FY 26 to 30 SIP detail. Down at the bottom, there's a total reserve balance at line 2, row 228. And what that's trying to do is look at like
Yep.
starting balance, how much are we putting in, how much are we taking out, what do we end with? And that's really all reserves. One thing I've started to do is break out between capital reserves, which would be like for the fire truck or something versus the non-capital reserve accounts, which is like the street trees and
Mhm.
invasive species and that kind of stuff. This is everything lumped together and, you know, shows us maintaining a decent reserve balance going forward. But we know we have some massive expenses coming up on the heavy equipment side for
Mhm.
fire and road. So right now, I would say this is a rough draft, kind of got the thing updated, applied inflation, all that stuff,
Mhm.
but we need to, now we need to kind of think through the numbers and do they make sense?
Right.
I did get the paving, the actual paving numbers in here for East Road. But for the, where is it? The slow road.
I haven't heard from Goodman or Josh as far as if they've what the price on the slow road might be.
Yeah, I think the request was, can they use the rest of the,
East line.
the reserve.
Yeah.
That we had in place for slow road.
A general question, so reserve funds, they just sit in general savings accounts that, or like, basically what kind of interest are they earning, just sitting there?
I think they're in basics. Each reserve account has its own bank account.
Mhm.
So I think that they are just earning regular bank interest. I think the CDs that we're buying
Mhm.
are money that's in the general fund.
Okay.
That's not designated for
Mhm.
anything, because it's got to be available.
And some of it is our reimbursement for state aid fund, state education funds that we know is gonna come due, but we have a few months to sock the money away until it's
Right.
due.
Yeah, like we have 6 month CD type thing.
Okay.
But it's a good question. If we're
Mhm.
reserving, like we've been building that paving reserve for 3 or 4 years. Like we could clearly do CDs or something similar there to get, you know,
At least like a high
4%
yield
interest
savings or
instead of.
something.
We are getting interest on those. I don't even know offhand.
Okay, I was
how
just,
it's invested.
just curious. I'm learning.
Yeah, no, it's
Mm.
good. It's a good question.
You know,
Yeah,
the water fund reserves, which are very much long-term, are earning good interest now in CDs.
Mhm.
So there's no reason we can't put them in
Yeah.
that, and it just as long as the money remains available when we need it.
I realize that's an additional layer of complication at a stage when we don't really have the bandwidth
Right.
for that, but I was just.
Yeah, and I know that before Randy left, he had been talking about putting an RFP out for banking services, so
Mm.
that might be something that is part of that question, but it also might be, and I think we would need to get voter approval on saying, we're gonna take all our reserve funds and combine them and do that internal record keeping, because I don't think, unless we took just the bigger reserve funds and bought CDs, like, we're really making a lot of, like,
Yeah.
a lot of work for the treasurer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a $10,000 CD is gonna get the same interest as a $500,000 CD, obviously. So I think there's that's broader planning,
Mhm.
but yeah.
But there's room to look
Yeah.
at that at some future point that
yes,
is not now.
exactly.
That would be a lot easier way to put money for a little bit longer term. I mean, 9 months is getting the top rate now at Waitsfield Savings,
Yeah.
which isn't that long.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would, for what it's worth, I would recommend, rather than just collapsing all 20 reserve accounts into one, maybe having 3 or 4 or 4 or 5.
Right,
or
like
something
fire
that
department
way,
reserves, road
Road
department
reserve.
reserves.
Non-capital
Yes.
reserves, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that would facilitate the kind of accounting of.
right.
transfers in
It
and
makes it easier, but we still can maintain those bigger buckets.
Yeah.
And we, like the Conservation Commission wouldn't start taking our road paving money.
out.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. All right, did you have anything else for the capital improvement program
no,
that you wanted to cover, or?
Work in progress, look it over and please share feedback if you hear anything from Charlie or Josh on the paving
Yeah.
side of Slow Road, let me know. But I think next review, although I think I'd be in a better position to tweak this thing and
Yeah,
be confident the mechanics all work, which I'm not yet.
right,
Um,
yeah, that's a big spreadsheet, lots of lines.
So you're thinking that right now the bottom line is a total increase of about 85,000 in reserves?
Yeah, that's in part driven by like that, vehicle, crew cab, quad cab thing,
Okay,
But-
blast and things like that.
But was it like spending, or was it wasn't the contribution?
I mean, it's kind of half a dozen, 1, 6 or the other. I think I put that in here, 75 grand funded from the reserve, and then increase the reserve amount for next year to make sure we had enough for that pumper truck. So it's kind of,
So wait, transfers to reserves is where I use that, those are the contributions, when we're talking about what we're
Yes.
putting into reserves, right? So I see road, bridges and culverts really would be going down of like 5,000, right? In FY 26, because we're going from 205 to 200 for the one, everything else is stable,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, we added the gravel.
The other's just accounting for what's coming out below that, right?
Yeah,
Not contributions.
correct.
Okay, then we get down to the next highway equipment vehicles. We're actually Okay, so transfers, so we have transfers to reserves under heavy equipment, it went down 10,000. Then transfers to reserves for the road department vehicle reserve went up 75,000. Or 80,000.
Right.
So that would be the increase, so were there other increases? So there is a plus 80, but I just wanna look at contributions, so there was plus 80, but we took out 10, so that's 70,
Yeah, there's,
took out another 5, so 65, so we increased the reserve funding by $65,000 total. I believe. That makes sense.
yeah, and there's some other, like we have the chipper was in the road department as a appropriation this year.
Right, they already have
Yeah.
that money. We don't need to put money for the new one. Yeah, but that's not, I'm talking about raising money through the budget to put it into reserves. Not what's coming out of reserves, just the increase, the impact on the budget, not the impact on our reserve funds.
Yeah,
the-
no, understood.
Right,
I'm
so
just saying that, if we fund things like the chipper out of appropriations, that's another impact on this year's budget, in addition to
No.
a increase.
it's not an impact on the budget because it's already in the reserves. We're buying that out of reserves. We're not paying for it out of the budget.
It's not the way this is set up. This is set up as it's a appropriation, not a
Okay.
specifically for that chipper thing. We can change that, obviously, it's just the way this,
Is that the way it was
that's the way it
written?
was last year. I don't think I altered that. I think that's the way. it was
Okay,
set up
let me
last
just
year.
double. I thought it was coming out of. No, oh yeah, it does say FY appropriation, so it shouldn't have any impact on,
Right, but it will have an impact on the budget as a, an expense line item. In the road crew budget.
right, but well, okay, they show it. Because it's a capital. Piece of capital equipment, it's in the capital program, even though it's not impacting the financial planning of the reserves itself.
Right.
Did we put that in last year's budget?
That is. Chach is saying it should be in this coming year's budget, so we put the hydraulic press in this current year's budget. And the chipper is supposed to come in for FY 26. And here is the paved road plan update,
Where?
which I had mentioned, that's,
Again, that's a appropriation.
it's under the vehicle purchases. It is line 93 in Chach's spreadsheet. Or 101, depending which line you're looking at.
I'm not sure about-
So, like, if we're looking at this spreadsheet, the appropriations, if it's in bold, it's actually coming out of the reserve fund. If it's not in bold, it's
Yes.
coming out of the budget.
Yeah,
So that means that in the road department budget, there should have been, if Josh is still planning to buy the chipper in FY 26, there should be a corresponding line in the budget for FY 26 for $35,000.
yeah, or we can adjust this plan,
Right.
but one way or another. If he still wants it, needs it,
Mhm.
we gotta.
Right, we gotta put it in the budget,
Mhm.
or we could take it out of the reserves, but we just put it back in later. So, and the truck that Josh wants to buy, the tandem dump truck, no wait, the pickup truck is what he wanted. Or did he move?
That's scheduled for
Yeah.
fiscal year 27, but that he is asking
Yes.
to look at earlier.
So that's the 2020, there was one that was already a 2025, okay. Then there's the tandem dump truck for 2028.
Yeah, the pickup truck is the first thing under vehicle purchases, and right now, again, carryover from last year, most of that is funded with an annual appropriation, not out of the reserve.
Yeah, but it was supposed to come out of the truck reserves. According to last year's budget, when we approved the CIP, it was coming out of 60,000 was coming out of truck reserves, not out of the annual
Okay.
appropriation.
All right,
And the same,
maybe I didn't have the final draft of this or something.
yeah, and then like the. The international single axle dump truck, it looks like. Well, now,
I've added some inflation to this.
right, but originally it was, I don't think it was all, it wasn't looking like we would have all the reserves. To buy it. And then there's the other dump truck, which I think they ordered.
Yeah, I think that was, if, like, I just zeroed out the appropriation for the pickup truck and now the reserve
Yeah,
balance goes negative.
but I don't
Mm.
think. I still think that should come out of reserves, cause we don't, rather than, I don't think it should be a fiscal,
The
if,
truck.
it shouldn't be
Yeah.
like, we already have enough other budget expenses, like, I think it should come out of the reserves.
Yeah, I'm just saying we are under reserve to do the
Yep.
single axle dump truck and the pickup truck in 27, unless we increase our reserve contribution this year in 26.
Right, but what we should be doing is I think we just need to get into the right feedback loop. The truck purchase should still come out of reserves, and that's how it should be reflected. And if we want to put more money into reserves, that's what we should do. That's the expense that should come out of the budget, but we shouldn't be buying the truck as a fiscal year appropriation from the budget directly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So whether we put more money into the reserve this year or next year to
Yeah.
do what you just said, which I
Right.
totally agree with, we'll need to crank up the reserve funding this year or next.
Right, but on the same, we should double check what the schedule is for replacement. Because it's not like we're adding something that we wanna buy out of reserves, we're just changing the schedule.
Mhm.
So the schedule might still work based on what we've been planning to contribute. Minus inflation. Like, if, right, but my point is if we're spending X in 2026 and Y in 2027, and now we wanna spend X in, or, now we wanna spend Y in 2026, when does X get spent? If we were planning to spend the money over the next 3 years, and we're still spending the money over the next 3 years, how much does that really change? And part of when everything is gonna be delivered.
Yeah, hey, if we wanna do the pickup truck this year and the dump truck next year. And if we can even get the dump truck next year, we don't have enough in the reserve account and aren't contributing enough this year and next year to make that work.
So which dump truck are you talking about?
The international single axle dump truck.
I don't think, I would say right now, that's not getting moved into FY 26 would be my feedback.
No. I think the request was to move the pickup truck into
Yes.
26, right?
Yeah, I
Right.
think the dump truck, I would,
Not the dump truck.
Carly said is probably 2 years out from after it's ordered.
Great.
Yeah, that's the internationals, and they haven't even ordered that one yet.
So if we
Oh,
move
yeah.
that to
So-
28, then if we
Oh,
start
okay,
moving stuff
deposits.
out, then we have more time to.
I don't
build
think there's
reserves.
any, because I asked about a deposit for the fire truck and they said we don't have to pay until it comes. And I think we did order the 2025 dump truck, which is coming in FY 26. And so we should check, one thing we should check is
Yeah.
to see what since we've committed to it, is the delivered cost gonna be that 218 or is it gonna be going up?
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing that would affect long-term planning.
Mhm.
And I mean, we ultimately. We need to start putting more money into reserves, but I don't know that we need to do that whole. Cover that whole truck expense. Depending,
And the undesignated balance, which is high this year,
Mhm.
and we have allocated that for reserves in the past.
Okay, yes, I think we could designate it
Yes.
into reserves.
Do we know
if
how high, roughly?
Oh,
Couple
it's-
hundred grand?
Yes,
mhm,
and then there's the ARPA that has reimbursed salaries.
right, and so we know when we get to the end of this current fiscal year, there should be reserves as well.
Yeah.
So. I mean, and that might be something more to keep in mind as far as any projected impact on the tax rate.
Yeah.
Like,
Great.
if that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
You good?
So would we, just think for next meeting, if we can get Steve. Maybe you already have the first 6 months of this year, just so we can kind of.
So that.
Yeah,
where we're at Actuals through December.
Yes,
Yeah,
See what's in that.
I only have it for certain. He keeps giving me the 30,000 feet summary and I want the line by line breakdown. So,
right.
Okay,
I asked for it today. I
cool,
had it just for the operation stuff
okay,
and I had it for roads.
great. And unless it's getting in your way or anybody else's, I was gonna ask him before just confirmation of the reserve account balances as of the end of the year,
Yeah,
to make sure.
to
that's-
confirm what we have. There you go.
We.
Ta-da.
Thanks.
Okay, we good for budget?
So I was thinking too.
Select board roundtable?
Can we talk just briefly on budget?
Yeah.
Plan from here, but, just to make sure we're all aligned on the timeline of when we have to get this thing put to bed and published and.
It's-
For and all that.
Well, 30 days.
Not fewer than 30, not more than 40, not less, not fewer than 30, right?
Yes.
So town meeting day is on the 4th. Theoretically, I know some places. Like generally so we meet on the 13th and then we're supposed to meet on the 20th and we're supposed to meet on the 27th. I would say at this point, we're probably close enough. We could either meet on the 13th or we could meet on the 20th, but we got to get a look at what our budget warning looks like as well. And then maybe we meet on the 27th and that's when we actually approve the warning. I know some towns approve the warning in advance outside of the 40 days and then they physically post it within that time frame.
You said 30 to 40 days. prior to
Yeah,
that.
within that, yeah, and that's not the way I learned. I always thought it was like you actually approve it. Is like posting it. So that would really need to happen, I think, on the 27th of January.
Yeah, I don't know how we would approve the warning without the bottom line numbers.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, we would just have them done beforehand, like say we were done with everything on the budget by the 20th.
Okay, yeah.
Then we would approve it and somebody puts the piece of paper up in the post office within that 30 to 40 days. my understanding is that we actually are supposed to approve it within that 30, 40 days, and then we post it in that same time frame. So we need to finalize budget numbers. We'll talk, salary numbers in executive session tonight.
Yeah.
So I think that would get us closer next week. We would probably need to meet on the 20th just to kind of look at things, and
Mhm.
I think we need to figure out how we're gonna get our warning together. I don't know if that generally requires legal review or,
We had run it through, I think we have typically done that.
okay, and
We don't
then
have anything else cooking.
we're not, it's pretty basic. It's just, so it would be the budget. And if we're gonna wanna, stay the course on new appropriations requests, that would be on the ballot as well, and that would be for both the Wade House money that was requested and for the arts, Matter of Arts,
Mhm.
right? Those are the two organizations.
There may be another that's come in. I
Okay.
think,
So those would be the only things that have to be put on the ballot. And so, or, yeah, put on the warning, and so that's all that would need to be approved.
Mhm.
So generally, by the time we get to the last meeting, when we're approving the warning, like, we've done all the work.
Yeah, yeah.
It's ready to go. We've basically approved it the meeting before. And we get to that last meeting and we're not gonna
Yep.
make any changes. We're just gonna approve it for posting. It's kind of a formality.
Yeah, so we'd approve the budget on the 27th, try to get it pretty much done on the 20th.
Correct.
well, I think we should bring in the cemetery commission next week.
Okay.
Their fish. I can try to wrap up the, dues and assessments appropriations,
Mhm.
and we can probably leave tonight's meeting with most of the salaries and
Mhm.
benefits.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just so I wouldn't be here on the 27th, but I don't think that's a big deal. If we get,
I think
Um,
we should talk about a town report.
yes, the town report though isn't, I know,
It's
isn't
not due
until
until,
February.
Yes.
So we have a couple weeks after we approve the budget to put the town report together. Yeah, so there's a few items, whether also, do we want to make a paper report or not? Because I don't think there's I mean, I know, right? I don't know how much of a requirement there is to. I know like the school district's all online. And I know there's also a lot of town reports downstairs that
Mhm.
don't get taken.
But
So,
it's such a tradition.
I know,
it is.
we've always done it that way.
Like, there's a logical fallacy that falls into that category.
We've always recycled it.
Well, we did vote once to not send it to everybody.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right, you can request it.
Yeah,
And so what you generally, yeah, I think you have to send a notification that you can request it and it's online.
if anybody's ever been to the post office on the day the town reports come out.
When
There's a
the-
lot of recycling going on.
When the school district one used to come out, there was a lot. So that was a good thing that they moved to online. Okay,
Mhm.
I can I'll send an email to Mariah and just ask him about the warning, if that would be helpful. Okay, select board roundtable? All right.
I really appreciated your message on Jimmy Carter in the porch forum.
Oh,
Oh, I missed that.
Thank you.
no, I
It was really well done.
generally put those out when
Mhm.
there's proclamation made.
Yeah, but also what you wrote was really thoughtful and wonderful.
Nice.
Rock and roll president.
Yeah, and then, and just so everybody knows, so, Tripp stepped down as fire chief and, Jared Young is our new fire chief. And I'm kind of still there having a little back and forth regarding, Tripp's check and possible reimbursement for those additional expenses from his insurance claim.
I've been copied on those and I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure where the lack of information is. I'm just,
Well, I think there's just questions, so.
it seems like there were some discretionary decisions made that weren't related to.
Well, that's my concern,
Yeah.
right? So if we're gonna ask if we're gonna approve that money coming out of the fire department budget, I think we need to understand where the difference comes from.
Yeah.
At least that's my thinking.
No, I agree with
And-
you. It's not clear. I was not.
And I took, 20 minutes to run through the estimate and look at the invoice. And there's a few items on there that I think they just need to speak to. And I did explain to them, I said, wait, this is gonna be an open session discussion at this point in time. But I don't have the time to put the two things in a spreadsheet and compare them side by side. I mean, there's basically 3 or 4 big ticket items that were the difference. And then there's also the question of needing the rental additional time, because
Mm.
his truck wasn't fixed within the 30 days. So. And I understand it's out of pocket and he used his personal vehicle, but I think we need to be very clear about what it is we're paying for, if we're gonna pay for it.
It was
and
the
why.
delay, the result of discretionary decisions. A rebuild.
That's what,
Yeah.
he did use a rebuild engine. He
Okay.
did get the rebuilt engine. There's some other stuff on there. I have a feeling, having dealt with a insurance claim fairly recently, that it was more about getting it into a shop. But I don't know.
My car's been in the shop after Valerie hit a deer since the end of October. I'm hoping this week.
Right.
Wow.
And and did insurance pay the rental that far out, or?
No.
Yeah, most only pay 30 days, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, it took me, my daughter hit a deer in February and it was the car was drivable, but it didn't get in until the end of May. So,
We had driven off into a snowbank, wasn't me? Was my
Just saying.
spouse, just saying. They had to tow him out, and it took over 6 months to actually get it seen.
yeah.
Not for lack of trying and calling and
To
calling
get away.
to get it seen, because there was
Oh.
like a bent axle involved. Yeah. That takes a while to actually, so we were with, only one car for the
Car,
bit.
awesome. So, okay, consent agenda. I know, Fred, you asked to pull out the minutes from 12:16. I guess just a quick note, on the second, we ended at 8:30, which is when we came out of executive session as well. I'm looking at your printout.
Oh, it's not mine, it just was on the table. so
Okay.
It's ours.
Ours. Did you have something specific for the 16th?
Yes, paragraph 4A,
Mm-hmm,
line 51, 52. Mr. Messer indicated that the deadline for
oh,
the Hoffman's dogs move out of town has passed. It should read is about to pass.
or,
It's minor, but
yeah,
I think it's
That's
important.
significant.
Just on that topic. All indications are the dogs are gone.
that's, yeah.
I know you were told.
Yeah, I haven't,
Does any of the neighbors see him lately?
seen them or heard them. Since actually well before the deadline.
Did we ever get a confirmation for the lawyers? Like, did our lawyer get a
Oh,
notice from their lawyer? that this
I can
happened?
ask about that as well.
Well, I did get a
I was-
message from the Hoffmans. They had to meet
Yeah.
on the 30th.
mhm. Okay, was that all the changes? And I think we were done about 8:15 that meeting, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
So since it's off the consent agenda, I'll move that we approve those minutes.
Second.
okay, all those in favor?
I,
All right, that's unanimous, all right, and then were there any objections to the consent agenda stuff, which did include the mileage certification?
Yep.
Okay, we're good. All right, then we just be looking for a motion to enter executive session. For the purpose of personnel. To discuss personnel.
make a motion that we enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313(a)(3 personnel.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous, so we're going in at 7:45. All right. All right, so we're back from executive session at 8:34, and unless there is a objection, we will adjourn. All right, great. See you all next week.